Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Internet Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Stephen George. Very good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 10th of February 2013. And we have our guest on tonight with you, which is going to be Brian Gerrish. Brian's just away at the moment, but we're going to give him a call in about 20 or so minutes. There's a few things that we need to go through, but the first things we'll go through will be the communication channel, Steve.
Communication channels, info@oymireland.com for your emails during the week, during the show. We also have the guest book on the website as well. If you... Okay, it's getting louder. Stop playing with the buttons, will you?
You just carry on talking.
Sorry. Yeah, it's just getting very loud in my ears. Yes, we have the guest book on the website as well. You're more than welcome to log in there and leave a message anonymously should you wish to do so. We also have the chat facility on the website as well, as per usual. If you're listening to us on one of these streams, you can navigate to oymireland.com. And on the homepage, top left-hand corner, you will see the live chat button. You can just click that and you can log in with your real name. You can register or you can log in with your real name. Or you can log in as a guest. Now, that Alan's going to speak more about that, but that is liable to change at some stage. So you can do that as well. You can join in the chat. You can also pose questions there to our special guest this evening, Mr. Brian Gerrish. Lastly, if you want to give us a shout on the telephone, you can...
Give us a call on 046 927 1212.
04692711212. If you're ringing in from outside Republic of Ireland, it's 00353 in front of that. Alan.
Right, Steve. Okay, yesterday we had the international marathon, the UWS, United We Strike Radio Marathon. Very successful marathon, probably one of the best that we had. So if after the show you want to go over or during the week and listen to the marathon and listen to the guests, just go over to unitedwestrike.com and click on the player, and there's an auto DJ facility where it's just playing the podcasts from the show on Saturday. Loads of great guests, loads of great information there. So I recommend popping over there.
I believe the production team were absolutely second to none.
Oh, the production team were fantastic. I heard they were brilliant.
Yeah.
Get the hint, I was on that team.
Yeah, Alan was producing that show there yesterday.
Well, Steve was on as well as a guest on the show. Didn't you come on?
I come on for a couple of minutes, but you were producing. You were fair. You've done a great job, fair play.
But you're a new daddy as well, so that's understandable.
That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it.
That's it, exactly. Right, okay, so the marathon, if you want to check it out, pop over there to United We Strike and click on the actual player. Steve?
Yes. What?
Steve?
Oh, yeah.
Hang on. Let's. After 2.5 years, we have an unscripted script, and he still forgets that we have a script.
Sorry, I thought you wanted me to take number 3.
No, that one there.
Right. Okay, I do apologise. Yeah, we have raised the funds. We finally raised enough money to get the bumper stickers. So a very, very big thank you to everyone who donated and all those who also clicked on the ads on the site as well for the AdSense, because as we do say, whenever you click on one of those, we do get a couple of coppers in the tip jar. So Alan has given the green light to the printer, so hopefully we'll have those stickers quite soon. They'll be on sale as per usual, same as the last ones. It'll be 5 stickers for €5. If you do buy them, try and give them out to people who are awake, people who you know are awake, or maybe even people who are just waking up. They can stick them on their car, so therefore... the campaign will gain momentum, and everybody will recognise everybody else and know who's awake and who's not awake. Then you can go up and have a chat with other like-minded people. And I added a little note in here just to mention as well. Don't do what I did. The last time I got some, I put one in the car, yes, but I also put one on the fridge. So by having one on the fridge, it just meant, I could have given it to another friend who was awake, and they could have been, put it on their car and proudly displayed it. So, don't put them on the fridge. €5 for 5 stickers.
That's it, exactly. And obviously what we want to do with the stickers is, if you buy 5 for 5, the money that we get gets reinvested into more stickers. And we want to try and get a national campaign going, or international campaign going with the stickers, that everybody has a sticker on the car, or the people who are awake have a sticker on the car. So that's really what's happening. That's the whole idea behind it. I will be talking about funding and everything else later on. We'll be talking about that, because there is a bone of contention with some people. about donations and funding. So we're going to probably talk about that later. The other thing that's just on the list there is, for people who don't know, Reg Presley, who was the lead singer and the frontman of the Trogs, died. He had lung cancer. He was 71 and he died in his home in Andover, Hampshire, surrounded by friends and family. Close friend and music publicist Keith Altham has said, as you might know, Reg spent a lot of time and money researching crop circles. Now the reason why we're talking about this is because I actually did contact Reg's friend, Keith, and I asked him if it was possible for Reg to come on the show to talk about crop circles. And unfortunately his health wasn't the best, and obviously now we know why, because he's passed away. But we will endeavour to try and get somebody on who is familiar with crop circles, because it's a subject that we've never actually talked about, and I personally would like to know more about them. And, you know, obviously, not all crop circles are Mick and Joe with a plank of wood at 2 o'clock in the morning coming from the pub. I think we can accept that fact. So, I think if we can get somebody on... Oh, okay, Steve. That tickle your fancy there.
No, do you know what I'm laughing at? I'm sorry. I do apologise. I'm sorry. I got a picture in my head when you said it. No, okay. The poor chap died, and you know, death is never. It's never a good thing. But he died surrounded by friends. He died surrounded by friends and family. Actually, just pictured the poor guy lying on his bed, and they're all he's kind of breathing, and they're all going, "Oh, he's gone," and he goes, "Oh no, he's not gone." No, sorry, that's in bad taste. I apologise.
I'm not saying anything. Okay, go ahead. You're up.
Yes, something we mentioned recently, I think it was as early as last week, about the Garda, that the Garda are, same as ourselves, are unable and finding it, some are unable and some are finding it difficult to pay their mortgages, bank loans, according to the body that represents the rank and file members of the force. The Garda Representative Association, the GRA, last night said it was pulling out of talks on extending the Croke Park agreement because of proposals to cut Garda pay. Yeah, the GRA also said it would not participate in any process that includes proposals to cut wages or that reduces the terms and conditions of employment. President of the GRA, John Parker, said that the proposed cuts were totally unacceptable to his members. You get paid for a week's work. If it includes other hours, you get paid for those, he said. They're targeting what makes up a constituent part of our pay. It's our members' bread and butter. They're unable to pay their loans and mortgages. It will be a substantial cut to them if this were to go through. Well, I'm glad to say that they are finding it tough, just the same as the rest of us. There's a lot of Garda stations, the equivalent of police stations in other countries, but the Garda stations, there's lots of those actually closing here as well. So whether they're going to redeploy the members, I don't know, or are they going to be just joining the unemployment line? I do not know, but from what I've seen yesterday, well, from what I've heard about yesterday, they're still, as much as they're finding it tough and they're experiencing the austerity same as the rest of us, they are still, doing what needs to be done. They're still doing their job, so fair play to them for, they're still out there and keeping the peace.
Can I also add to that?
Yes, you can.
I have heard through the grapevine that some Gardaí are using the washer method regarding their mortgages. Oh,
the old slightly old washers across the counter.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? If it works.
Yeah. So everybody's feeling it, even the Gardaí. So if they're using the same method, then if it's good for them, it's good for us. We can use that method.
Did you actually see? Now I seen something posted up on Facebook earlier this evening, but I didn't actually click on it to read it because I was doing other things. But there was something about the protests that happened in Dublin city centre yesterday. Well, all around the country actually, but I think there was something in relation to the Gardaí saying that they may have overstepped the mark and they could have been a little bit heavy-handed towards some of the protesters. Did you hear that about that?
Well, I was watching the video on YouTube earlier today, and definitely they were heavy-handed. Yeah. Definitely. I think they went about too far. I mean, the old kind of what they say that the trouble only starts when the police arrive. I mean, that's basically what you could see. Yeah. They definitely were heavy-handed. There was no need for what they did. And the video's on YouTube. I'm sure you'll come across it, or you can Google it and find it on YouTube. Now, talking about YouTube, as you know, what we do is when we do our show, we actually put up a YouTube of the podcast, and obviously people are commenting on, we allow comments on the videos, because everybody is allowed to have their opinion. And some opinions are quite strong, and other opinions are quite light. Now, Open Your Mind is a station that covers all areas. We don't just cover one area, we cover all areas, okay? So, the best thing to do is, if we do have a guest on, or there's an area that you don't like, like television, the best thing to do is switch it off. If we had like Andrew Presago on a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about, he's a qualified lawyer, and he that's what he works at. He has other qualifications as well, but he talked about his work with the Mars Project, Pegasus, and everything else. And I know there's one or two people kind of are saying, oh, here we go. But at the end of the day, that's what OYM do. We get people on, and we let you hear what they have to say, and you make your mind up whether you want to believe them or not. But, you have to keep an open mind. Aristotle said the mark of an educated mind is to be able to entertain the thought without having to agree with it. Okay? So, the ability to actually think outside the box is very important, and it is the mark of an educated mind. So, try and bear that in mind when you hear subjects that, because the first thing what people do is try and protect their belief system. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, well, how much do I actually know about that subject? Before you turn around and actually poo-poo it and say, oh yeah, no, that's a load of whatever, think about it. How much do you know about that subject compared to the person who's talking about it? Because I went through this process when I first woke up. Because I was saying conspiracy theorists and everything else, and then I questioned my own knowledge, and I said, well, how much do I know about this subject matter to turn around and make that statement? And I think it's important we all have to query our own knowledge and our own experience, and when somebody says something, we have to say, well, actually, how much do we know about this subject? We're going off saying this, that, and the other, but do we really know anything about it? Do we have any experience with it? So, I just want people to make sure, have a think, about how open your mind is, and ask what knowledge do you have because we all form an opinion, but what's the opinion based on? And there's a few opinions on the YouTube channel, videos and podcasts that we have up there, But I wanted to say that. But Steve, how's your week?
I'm sorry, I cannot follow what you just said there. It was. I totally agree. I think we all need to be a little more understanding of ourselves and our fellow man. Anyway, my week as the week went, it wasn't very productive. I do apologise. I did notice. I think I spoke possibly last week. I mentioned about chemtrails. Yes, chemtrails. About there was a lot of low flying or low, whatever you want to call them. Low-lying chemtrails up in the Dublin area in and around Blanchardstown over the past week. I think it was a couple of days there last week. They were very, very noticeable and very, very low. On my journey home last, I think it was Friday, I was in communication with Alan on the way home, and I was just telling him that as I was being propelled along in the vehicle that I was in, I noticed a couple of chemtrails, and they didn't look like the normal ones. I don't know if it was, maybe it's something new that's being sprayed, I don't know, but it looked like a regular chemtrail, but then as if someone had got a comb, a large comb, for want of a better word, and just kind of combed the chemtrail, or like put a comb in through the middle of it and just kind of shook it. But it made a lovely design in the sky, I have to admit. But yeah, obviously it's a chemtrail nonetheless. So I don't know if maybe they're adding some new ingredients, new and improved ingredients to kill us slower or kill us quicker or get us high. Who knows? The other thing I was going to say as well, which we've already touched on, was about the protests. It was great to see everybody who did participate in the protests. Because I was I found myself in front of a television set at one point yesterday, and being in Ireland, there happened to be a news broadcast on. It happened to be in the mother language, in the mother tongue, in Irish, Oscailiga, and there was several people interviewed, and they were all protesting, and they were interviewed. They actually gave the interview. Most of them did in Irish as well. I think one of them was a teacher, and there was a peaceful protest from what I seen. They were protesting, the same as everyone else, because of the day that was in it. There were marches organised up and down the length and breadth of the country. They seemed like just regular, normal, everyday people. As I say, one of the ladies in question was a teacher. She done her part on the interview as well. So protests, as much as I always say that I don't think they really make a damn bit of difference, because 9 times out of 10 you only see the negative aspects of it. When it's reported on the news, you kind of don't get told really what they were protesting for. You generally just get told that, there was a protest today, there was a bit of trouble at Garda, you had to be there and they had to break up, there was and then the protesters are seen in a negative light. But the fact that these were interviewed yesterday, I think it may have done the cause good as opposed to bad. So with the old fluid belief system, I may be having a bit of a rethink on the whole protest issue. I think maybe the protest is probably a good idea, probably a shot across the bow of the government, although I do think that if nothing follows on from the protest, it's been a complete waste of time. I do believe, like other people, there is a revolution on the way. The sooner it happens, the better, because I think it has to happen. Obviously, that's just my own personal opinion and doesn't reflect Alan's opinion or the opinions of OYM or any of our guests. I just had to say that. But that's pretty much it for the moment.
Okay.
Alan, how was your week?
No worries. Just a few things. Again, a couple of kind of gifts coming in during the week, which is really nice. Alan Carner from English Riviera Productions has a new album out called Providence, and we were featuring Alan's album on Unite to Be Strike yesterday. So Alan sent one over, and Katie, thanks a lot for sending the album over. It's very good, Alan. Been enjoying listening to it there. Good sounds on the CD, and we hope to play a couple of tracks maybe. As you know, we're really a talk radio station rather than a music radio station, but we will be on to a musical break shortly, so we'll be getting Brian on, so we might just play one quickly there. The other thing is Walter Graham. Now, everybody knows Walter. He's the chap that got fluoride out of water up in Northern Ireland, and he's always campaigning regarding the Wi-Fi and wireless and everything else. Well, Walter is also a graphic artist, for people who don't know. And he sent down a caricature of myself and Steve on the radio. And it was very good, wasn't it, Steve? It was a good great caricature.
It's bloody brilliant.
Yeah.
And anyone I've showed it to the wife and kids, and they all thought it was absolutely fantastic. I think, is that going to be revealed at any time soon?
Well, basically we're working on a new OYM website at the moment. So one of the things we're going to be doing is actually putting a caricature on the site. So you'll get a caricature of me and Steve at least, not a photo, but a caricature of me and Steve, But that site's it's going to take a while to sort out, because there's so much more, there's so many things going on at the moment. But we'll eventually get there. But thanks to Walter for doing that. It was a fantastic. But you'll see it anyway. Now, during the week, I just happened to tune into TNS Radio, and Billy McGuire was being interviewed by a radio station by Classic Hits FM by a chap called David Harvey. And, well, there was a few choice names selected for this DJ. Again, ignorance was involved, and he was trying to lump in sovereignty with aliens and UFOs. And for the guys in TNS who are on listening to the show, you know what I'm talking about, in what way. I mean, it was just disgraceful, the way he went on. But then again, that's what you expect from mainstream or junk media, as Neil from Sovereign Independent in the UK would call it, junk media. That's what you expect, because maybe that's their job, is to just discredit. And the way they tie in, the whole UFO alien thing with sovereignty, it was just disgusting that he took that approach. So David Harvey is his name, the DJ, just for people, if you ever hear him or if you come across him in the street, you might
kick him.
No, you might want to say you've been a naughty boy, David.
Educated.
You shouldn't be saying things like that.
No, but look, as we said the other day, that's just classic. They call themselves Classic Hits. I have a different name for them. But I mean, that's obviously what they do. When these issues start arising, and when it gets to a point where it's just over. The whole thing is saturated. They have to cover these stories, and they have. I mean, Billy Maguire and what Billy is doing, and the lads on TNS as well. It's gathering momentum, as also what Harry is doing as well. Harry from We the People. It's gathering momentum. It's getting more popular. So it obviously comes to a stage where some of the media have to cover it, because if they don't cover it, well then it's just they have to cover it. They just have to give it a little bit of airtime. But obviously, in the way that you've described, they won't just put it out there as is. They have to kind of branch off and link it with other things, so that their listeners hear, all right, direct democracy. They might hear that. They might hear sovereignty, turning of the seal. But then obviously people go, wow, so we actually have an Independence Day. But then if they then go, yeah, you have an Independence Day, and what about all these aliens and all this carry on? So therefore, not only do we have people they're kind of getting a little bit of education about our sovereignty, etc., but then immediately it's kind of followed up by aliens, conspiracy theories or something. So therefore, it doesn't hit home. It really doesn't hit home, about the whole sovereignty thing. So therefore,
they have to mix it up with other stuff.
They mix it up, so therefore they're actually watering it down. So when the people kind of digest it, there's someone out there saying something about sovereignty and the Day of Independence and turning of a seal. Yeah, but they're all the conspiracy theories, and they've something to do with UFOs and aliens.
Exactly, that's the whole psychology.
Yeah, so thank you, David Harvey.
No point getting stressed over. The other thing before we go and try and get Brian on is now I don't know what you think of this. A school request was sent home with my son from his school, and it's supposed to got to do with the green school water flag. Okay, now I really think this sounds like Agenda 21, but you guys decide for yourself. So all these questions get sent home in this questionnaire, and I'll tell you, I'm not going to read all the questions out, but there's 15
Read
questions.
the good ones out.
Right, so very quickly, do you try and conserve water at your home? Do you have a water meter? Do you have a private well? Do you have a rainwater harvesting system in place of your home? Do you have a water butt? Do you have a cistern hippo? Do you have a flush control on your cistern? Do you turn off the tap when brushing your teeth? And the list goes on and on and on. 15 questions, guys.
And that's supposed to be for just for the school, because I know a lot of schools in here, they're trying to get what's called a green flag, which means they're very environmentally friendly and etc., etc.
Yeah, so do you keep a basin in your sink? Man, these questions are just too personal as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So
sorry, but when I read those and you emailed it over to me, it kind of looked a little bit like what you'd see on a census form. It was kind of it had that census feel, that invasion of privacy. We want to know about you and your habits.
So I just wrote a letter back and I said this has no relevance to my son's education and I don't consent to these questions.
Oh yes.
Sent the letter back with that in an envelope to the head mistress of the school and said, there you go, none of your business, nothing got to do with my son's education. That's Agenda 21 as far as I'm concerned, but that's just my opinion. But I think that just feels a bit. Definitely Agenda 21. Okay, listen, we're going to go off. We're going to go try and give Brian a ring. So we're going to play a bit of music from Alan. It's called Sick of These Wolves, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMIreland.com, CNSradio.ning.com, and ICRadioNetwork.com.
Okay, we're back. Okay, we're pleased to say that we have Brian on the line. Good evening, Brian. How are you?
Good evening. I'm extremely well. Thank you.
No problem. Brian, you've been on the show a few times already, so there's no point going over old ground. And what we really want to do, there's a number of things that we want to catch up with you about things that have happened regarding the Jimmy Savile and all that kind of stuff and what's happening with that. And we want to kind of get that out and expose and anything that you've come across. Now, funny enough, I was watching you this morning while I was in bed.
Hello.
Sorry, did I hear that right?
Yeah. No, Brian wasn't in my bedroom.
Sorry.
But I was obviously woke up early this morning and I flicked around and your UK column TV show is on the Showcase channel, and I think it's on Edge Media as well. You're doing a fantastic job there with Mike and the crew, and the information is just fantastic. So let's start off with that. Tell us a bit more about what, you know, the TV show, what you've been doing, and with UK Column, and give us some promo on that.
Okay. Well, the main bit is that I think Mike and myself and the rest of the UK Column team are still a bit stunned at the success we've had with the web TV program, because it's been extraordinary. We've got people from all over the place telling us that we're doing the right thing. They like what we're doing. One lady sent an email and she said that she was 43 years old. She said, I hadn't got a clue what was going on. I watched one of your newses. I thought it was a bit far-fetched. I then watched another one, and then all of a sudden I understood what was going on. And that was a very powerful email, but the response from people is fantastic. So it's definitely told us that basically the video is the way to go, and obviously we can keep up with events in a way that we couldn't when we were doing the newspaper. But having said that, there are a lot of people still like receiving the UK Column, and what we are going to do, what we've decided to do, is because the TV programmes are working so well, we're going to go with that as precedence, and we are going to produce the UK Column quarterly, and this means that we can keep up with events on video. We can then produce articles and get that information packed into the UK Column for those who want to read it. So we're going to try and give people the best of both worlds. But what do we think we're doing that's working in the news programmes? It's simply taking day-to-day events and interpreting them, explaining to people what's really happening. And that seems to be going down extremely well with people.
Definitely. Well, I think you're doing a fantastic job with the show. It looks very professional. You even do a weather report at the end of it, which is fantastic. But the information is really, really good. Now, the one thing that I came across during the week, and I was sent a link to a video regarding an interview that was done. But before we go down that road, one of the things that was said to us by Luke Radowski when we interviewed him, he said, unless you're producing video, people won't actually really be interested because of this dumbing down and apathy and everything else. So I think you're definitely going down the right road with the video and the video production and the TV show, because that's where everything's at and people can tune in to see it. But as per usual, Brian, when you try to do your best and put the effort in and put the work in and everything else, you're always going to get people who'll have a different opinion. And I was sent a link during the week to listen to an interview that took place by a lady who worked for another, I think, a Dark Side Radio, I'm not too sure. And, you know, I'm going to I have my own opinion on it, but I'm sure you probably heard about it, but she wasn't really very favourable with UK Column, and she was referring to the funding and who the connections are or where the funding's coming from. Do you know anything about this lady, Brian?
Well, excuse me, unfortunately I know quite a lot about her, because I'll say that in all the time I've been doing what I've been doing, and I've been attacked by people on many occasions in all different ways. I've been accused of being all sorts of things: a shrill, a fraud, a government agent, a Crown agent, MI5. It goes on and on. But I know what I'm doing. I know why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I've discovered what's actually going on. Unless we fight it, we're going to end up in a dictatorship, and I'll come back onto that subject. But this lady appeared more or less out of nowhere, and her gripe was initially over the Holly Gregg case. And she teamed herself up with another particularly unpleasant person, as far as I'm concerned, called Sarah McLeod. And what they'd done is decided that the Holly Gregg story was a hoax. And Mel V says that she made several attempts to contact me, but I didn't reply. If she'd bothered to even call the office, she would have discovered that many people don't get a reply from me because I simply can't cope with the emails and calls that come in. But she was clearly upset because we didn't respond to her. She then asked a lot of questions to do with the Holly Gregg campaign, which I wasn't prepared to answer because I didn't trust her, and also she was coming in from completely the wrong angle. And as a result of that, she then deliberately started to spread complete lies over the internet. Her favourite one was that she discovered that there was a man with a name called Gerrish, and he was supposedly working for Rothschilds, and therefore, according to Mel V, this man was my brother. She spread that over quite a lot of Facebook and Twitter and various other places. And her rationale for doing this was that she said, well, you're not treating the Holly hoax team properly, therefore we're going to give you some of the same. So first of all, she accused me of having a brother, which I don't have and have never had. Then supposedly, because one of our donors, an elderly lady, is distantly related to, I've forgotten his name now, famous First World War general anyway, we were therefore taking money from people who kill people. From that, she went on to, I think she had a dig because we've actually spoken to some LaRouche people. What else did she go at? Well, she wanted us to send us a list of all the people who donate to her, donate to us, so that she could check them out. That was the most amusing thing she did. Her emails have been absolutely vile. And she then drew in a number of people who've got axes to grind with the UK column. One of them is an ex-policeman who I personally spent a lot of time helping. I spent a lot of time with another guy helping his wife. And our reward for that is that this man joined in her campaign. Another man who has joined in her campaign, who actually I've got a lot of time for, but he is clearly had a very rough time from the authorities, is a guy called Chris Jarvis. 1 minute Chris is your friend, 1 minute you're working with him, and the next minute he's attacking you. But Mel V, I will say, is the nastiest person I've ever had the mispleasure to be attacked by. She simply lies. All of the claims she's made are complete nonsense, because we have always been funded by ordinary members of the public. Some of them have been quite generous. Some of them send us £5. Some of them send us stamps. And we have been doing this for a very long time, whereas Mel V has appeared on the scene fairly recently. She interviewed Ike and then attacked him. She's attacked Ian Crane. She's attacked me. And if you actually say, who is this woman? She comes from South Africa. She claims to come from a mining family. She claims to be related to Princess Diana. She claims to be an abuse victim. And this is the bit which is the biggest joke for me. She claims to be an abuse victim, but she has never produced one shred of evidence. Meanwhile, she attacks Holly Gregg. The woman is disgusting.
Okay, well, one of the things that she did mention on the interview,
yep,
which I want to have a talk about, because you just mentioned it there, Brian, about donations and support. And to be honest with you, you know, at the end of the day, running a radio show or a TV station or whatever costs money. And whether it's, you know, myself and Steve try and run OYM on a very, very, very tight budget. And if we can do free stuff, we'll do free stuff. But we still have costs and overhead. And we still have projects that we want to get involved in, like the bumper sticker campaign. where we want everybody to have a sticker on the car to say, I'm awake, and get people talking to each other and educating each other. So everything gets pumped back into OYM in some way or some form, and we really appreciate the, as you say, donations come in. Sometimes they're €2, sometimes they're €3, and sometimes they're a little bit higher than that. That's fantastic. Everything helps, and we really appreciate all the donations we get off our listeners. And we only for that, OYM probably wouldn't have lasted as long as it has because of their support and their help and their encouragement, and people, sending us emails and even saying, listen guys, we love what you're doing, and the guests that we have on and everything else. It's great support for us, and it's great feedback for us to keep going. But we do need, funding for certain things for...
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing I will say is the UK column, I'm not sure how long we've been going now, probably eight years I think it is. I will tell you this, on Friday it was the funeral of one of the men who kindly helped us with our first little room that we had, which when we walked into there was nothing, there was a room, and we were given computers, we were given tables and chairs, and it's been basic donations from people that have got us started. But I'm going to say that the thing that UK Column did, which seemed to work, is that we produced that paper, and somehow we kept producing it. And I've got to sit here and say to myself, I've got to be quite measured, because to have this woman Mel V, because we own a room where if I really stretched out, if you watch UK Column live, if Mike and I stretched our respective outside arms out, we would be touching the walls of the studio. And I've got this stupid woman trying to claim that we're running a $1 million operation. People who've come to visit us in our offices, and they do on a regular basis, that's because we have more than one room. But if you come in the studio, people are saying, I can't believe you produced this program from this room. And this woman, what's the other thing I think on the internet at the moment? Somebody's been claiming I earn £80,000 a year. If I added up all the money I've personally put in this, and that's money that's been denied to my family, what this woman is claiming is not only a complete lie, but it's very nasty stuff. Mike Robinson is exactly the same. He gave up a career to come in and help. We've got Carol and Kate, both grandmothers, who give up their time every day to support what we're doing. We've got Louise Collins, who comes in. She's another single mother. I'm just going to say the woman is an extremely nasty piece of work. We get funded on donations. We don't pay ourselves salaries. We never have done. If I use my car, and I've put thousands of miles on my car doing what I'm doing, at the end of the day, the cost comes back to me.
Yeah. I agree with you, Brian. We're in the same boat. The amount of money that we personally put in on top of the donations. This is why, when we get donations from, say, Marcus, who gave us a few books to sell, from the Sovereign Independent, and One World Chronicle, all these little bits, we get a few cents from these. This helps,
They all help, and what we're doing is being successful, and we are getting donations in. And we simply also say that all the money is turned round, all the money we can account for, and all the money gets put into the campaign. So this nonsense that we're funded by, there's been all sorts of bizarre stories, but one of the key ones is that we're funded by LaRouche. Absolute rubbish.
Mm. And I think you can't do guilty by association. Just because a family member might have been involved in something more sinister or whatever, you can't turn around and say, well, because they're great-grandfather.
I don't have any family members that have been involved in anything sinister.
No, this lady...
I have one sister who was a nurse, and the rest of it that's come up around Mel V is a pack of lies. I think what people should be asking is, who is Mel V? South African, turns up in Holland. All of a sudden, she's running Freedom Central. She's travelling from Holland down to South Africa. She's travelling into Scotland in order to get involved in the Holly Gregg campaign. You follow her website through and see what this woman's up to. And I think I know what she's up to, because since she's appeared on the scene, a lot of people who were working extremely well together have now become quite fragmented. And if there's anybody, or you want to ask me any questions about the Holly Gregg thing, that is even worse, because at the end of the day, the substance of the Holly Gregg case still absolutely stands. That little girl, as she was, said she was abused. She said who abused her. She said how she was abused in front of witnesses. The police say in writing she was abused. The experts say she was abused. The doctor said she was abused. The Down Syndrome Society said she was abused. And yet none of the people who were named have been investigated by the police.
And
that is the absolute foundation of the Holly Gregg case. And what this crowd have done in a very dirty, devious way is ignored the abuse and switched the argument to, oh, these poor people have had their names dragged through the mud. Well, if the police had done their job and interviewed the key people that were named as abusers, their names would have been cleared. So Mel V has done a brilliant job for the state. Now, either she's working professionally or she is a complete useful idiot, because by driving a wedge into the Holly Gregg campaign, what they are doing is the state's bidding, because the state wants to cover up the paedophile networks. In fact, they're desperate. So I can imagine people at the higher levels of the elite rubbing their hands with glee at what Mel V is up to.
And we have to watch out for people like that. The reference to the family thing, Brian, was just, I was talking about the person, this old lady that you're talking about, and who her relative may or may not be. I wasn't talking about your own personal family there, just to clarify that.
No, that's okay. But I'm putting a bit of passion into this. Somebody sent me an email this morning saying, Brian, you got a bit sort of fired up in an email that I sent back to one of these characters. And my reply to that is, we sit in our office, and every week, I can't say every day, but every week, calls come in from mums and dads. They are absolutely desperate. Their children have been taken away from them. They're about to be taken away, or their children have been taken away, and they know those children are being abused. People beaten up by the police. We take these calls day in and day out. We can't help all of these people on a case-by-case basis. The only way we're going to help all these people is to bring down this corrupt regime. And while we have to endure these people calling in, some of the calls are so harrowing that, even if you try and sort of stand back from it a bit, they still get you. Every time I think I've heard the worst and most disgusting story, another one comes along. And people like Mel V, she's a poor little rich girl. She claims to be poor, but when you follow her through, these claims she's been abused. Where is the evidence, Mel V? Yeah, she's accusing Holly of no evidence. Where is Mel V's evidence she's been abused?
Well, we'll try and get that. I'll try and get her on sometime and just answer these questions that you have for her, Brian. But I'll tell you what, we have
but just as long as I can say that what Mel V has come out with is a complete pack of lies. And if I was to talk about the content of some of her emails to me, I have never had such foul, abusive language from anybody else who's had some sort of gripe against me. Her emails were full of language which I'm not even going to repeat on air.
No, probably, that's not been a family show.
The best I will give her is that she's a deeply disturbed person. But is she a campaigner for the truth? Absolutely not.
Okay,
absolutely not.
What we do? Well, that's okay. I've sent you over the link, and of the interview she did, and I wanted you to have a look at that. So, but what we're going to do, Brian, is we have a number of questions here for people wanting to get to you and ask questions. So I'm going to pass over to Steve, and Steve's going to call them out to you there.
Yeah, I've been very quiet up to now. Brian, just in relation to the Mel V thing, Shane says, one of the listeners on TNS, Shane says, can you ask Brian if he could put up those emails on his website so we could all reply to this troll Mel? There is power in numbers. I think I know the answer to that already, but I'll throw it over to you.
Well, I'm going to say I don't really want to do that. I'll give you... One of the things that Mel V said to me, which I don't particularly want to put up on a website, but I'm going to say, is she suggested that I got off on the victims and hearing from the mothers and what was happening about the children. You can imagine the language yourself, but her words were that I got off sexually on hearing about these abuse cases. And that's why, if I'm coming across pretty prickly about this woman, she is the most disgusting person I've ever come across. So no, I don't want to put those emails up because I don't want to clutter my website with her abuse because it is so unpleasant.
Just negative energy anyway, so we have to ignore it.
Yeah, I mean, to be totally honest, I think we all knew that was your answer, going to be the answer anyway. I mean, I don't think you're the sort of gentleman who's going to, start getting into a public,
Well, she has not said one thing about me which is true, whether it's to do with what I think, how I work, what my interest in these cases are, how I'm funded. Nothing she said is true. She makes it up. Now, either you've got to say this woman is professional and her job is to break up the networks, or possibly she has been abused as a child and she's a deeply disturbed person. But I tell you, if you start to go and look through her website, and you'll see she starts talking about, I can't think the name of the South American drug that she's been helping people experience, mind-bending drugs. I think she's a dangerous woman.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll check that out at some stage. I mean, I haven't actually seen the lady's website, but I mean, like everything else, Brian. I mean, let's say for argument's sake, you're doing what you're doing and you're getting very, very close to the truth. Then it makes sense that someone like Mel V is going to come along and start to kind of, take away from your character and try and assassinate your character. I mean, I suppose that's just kind of part of the... I'm going to say part of the game. I know it's not a game, but it's obviously par for the course. So when someone, say, who's doing the work that you're doing, when you do start kind of, stepping on toes, obviously this is a natural reaction where people do try to assassinate your character.
That's certainly true. But I'm going to say I think there's something special about this woman.
Well, we'll find out in the course of time. Anyway, another question. A comment followed by a question from one of the listeners on TNS. They say, what is missing in relation to the Holly Gregg story is evidence of now they're saying that it's missing evidence of a high-ranking paedophile ring. They also go on to say she was abused by her family. And why does Brian not meet with the Holly Gregg hoax team as invited at the upcoming meeting in London?
Well, right. I did an interview. I can't remember the date off the top of my head, but on the UK column site. And what I'm happy to do tomorrow is we'll find it and I'll flag it up so it's easy for people to find the interview. But Robert Green came into the studio and I interviewed him about the abuse of Holly Gregg. and we put up on screen the irrefutable evidence that she had been abused. Remembering, of course, that the key evidence is Holly Gregg herself, because she is the victim who spoke out, and she named the people who abused her, and she also said how they abused her. She also said where they abused her, and in many cases she was able to give the relationship between people. Not only did she tell the police that herself, she also told the police that on an occasion where Robert Green was in hearing distance. And the key evidence around the abuse of Holly Gregg we talk about in that interview that I deal with Robert. Now then we come to an interesting point. If we take one document, for example, and we showed on screen a letter from the police where they agreed that not only the interviewing officers, but a number of other officers were of the opinion she was abused, why then did the police not interview any of the people who Holly said had abused her? Right? Now, the reason that I won't engage with the Holly Hoax group is because they simply have tried to shift the argument away from the key thing, was Holly abused? They've tried to shift the argument to some people have been named as abusers who claim that they're not abusers. Right? Now, this is a diversionary argument. The whole point of the Holly Gregg case is that this, as she was little girl, said she was abused. She was very detailed in saying how she was abused and by whom she was abused, and the police initially, a number of police officers, agreed that she was a truthful and credible witness. And despite that, nobody was investigated. Now, this is the prime issue, the fact that there was no investigation of people who Holly said had abused her. Now, I'm going to say, I understand this process exceptionally well, because if I take one other example, but I'm happy to give more, in Oxford and Cherwell Valley College, we have a number of students who have come forward saying that they have been sexually abused or physically abused or both, or shown pornography so bad, including child pornography and snuff films, that it damaged them. And Thames Valley Police, with the college, have simply refused to investigate. Hence, there's no crime. Now, one man who had actually, and I said this on air on the UK column Live News, who had been showing pictures of his erect penis to his to his colleagues at the school, had also been doing the same and the real thing to the students. There was no proper investigation around that man, and in the end, they let him go from the college. So he slips away from the college with no punishment. He's not exposed into the press or to parents, and now he's still working in the education field in another part of the country. Thames Valley Police were present when he was effectively given the interview dismissing him from the college. So we know, and I know because a lot of other people are talking to us, that in case after case there is no crime because the police simply fail to investigate. Now, what the Holly Hoax group have done very cleverly is they've attempted to shift the argument away from, has a crime been committed? Well, we have a victim, and the victim is talking about what was done to her. She's credible, she's truthful. There's no investigation, but what Holly Hoax group do is say, oh, we've got these poor people. They've been accused, and they say they're innocent. Well, they would, wouldn't they? The only place where they're going to be cleared is when the Holly case is brought where it should be, which is a proper court of law in front of a jury. So I'm not going to engage with the Holly hoax people because they are the hoax. They are not interested in the fact we've got somewhere in the region of 30,000 children a year disappearing in this country. They are not interested in the fact that if you go into a family court, you can experience the lies, the perjury, the false evidence presented against mothers and fathers, and in some cases children. They have no idea of the scale of the corruption. But by trying to destroy this case, they are, of course, helping the abusers in this country. So, no, I'm not going to engage with them.
I think you have to look at the evidence, really, at the end of the day. And if they are turning around and saying that it's a Holly hoax, you have to say, well, you show us the evidence you have to prove otherwise.
No, because, this is one of the errors. Law, the way our law and justice system should work, is if somebody claims they have had a wrong done against them, whether it's theft or burglary or rape or abuse, that is fully and properly investigated. And then if there seems to be a case to answer, it is brought into a court. And that is where the full evidence is presented.
Yeah.
But of course, despite the fact that we can show, even in one letter from the police say, yes, this little girl has been abused, there is no court case. And what the Holly Hoax group are trying to do is say, well, actually, we want her trial all over the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's very subtle, it's quite clever, but what they are doing is twisting away from the key point.
Well, this is what
if the police, if expert witnesses, if other people say this little girl was sexually abused and people have been named as the abusers, then they should be brought into court. Some of them may be convicted, some may be cleared as innocent. But the justice takes place in a court, not on the Holly Hoax website.
Yeah.
Now, where somebody could say, yeah, but hang on a minute, because there was a campaign run on the internet for Holly Gregg, so aren't you being a bit disingenuous? The answer is no, because the fact that the police failed to investigate the sexual abuse of Holly meant we had to run a campaign to bring into the public domain the fact the police were not doing their job. Yeah?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, this is what they're very good at doing, using the psychology and just turning it and putting a spin on it. But I'm aware that we have a load more questions for you, Brian, as well. So we'll go over to Steve there. Shoot away, Steve.
Yeah. Guys, I'm going to say that if I may be being a bit passionate over the phone tonight, I tell you what I now know is going on. If people don't start becoming human again and getting angry and emotive with what's going on in this country, we are finished.
I agree with you, Brian. Because we're obviously, myself and Steve are obviously doing what we do at OYM, and we get in emails and videos and information that we're privy to, which we can't really talk about. And it's really shocking what level things are going to and what's going on. And there's still, I mean, I won't go into it, but we had an instant during the week where I was trying to educate people regarding Wi-Fi. And the ignorance of these people was unbelievable. Even though, I mean, myself and Steve have a background in communications, and even though these people didn't have a clue about communications, they still had a snigger about it. They said, as if to say, Wi-Fi, is it dangerous? No, I don't think so. Why have it in my house? This kind of ignorant level it was going to. And, but as you say, there's more sinister things going on. But I'll pass you over to Steve. He has a few more questions for you there, Brian.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I just want to let you know, Brian, that there's a lot of chat going on our own chat room, which I'm going to talk about briefly. But just want to let you know that there are other comments coming in as well, like this one from Neil Callahan. Neil says, "Hey Brian, I want to tell you that I love what you do, and you have my support 100%. I love you, man." That's one. We also have, where are we? From Alan Carnett. And Alan says, "I am profoundly saddened by all the attacks on Brian. I can say this, Brian Gerrish is totally legit, sincere and integral, and one of the nicest people anyone could meet. It's not surprising he is targeted by shills and agents for the other side." And that one is from Alan Carnett. So, I mean, we are getting some good comments in as well as questions. But
well, it's nice of you to say so, but I'm also going to say on this subject that I've been at this game long enough and I've got a thick enough skin now that I know it goes with the territory, and it also, as you've intimated, when you're getting somewhere, the attacks start.
Exactly.
I think that the establishment, that they're shitting themselves, basically.
Yeah.
They know that enough people know what they're doing and are coming for them. And I think we're going to see some incredible things happening this year. When you're ready, there's a couple of things happening that I'd like to talk about, because there's the secret courts coming in England. That's been going on, hidden by all this stuff over gay marriage. And we've got the Leveson inquiry, part of it, the report being forced through the Lords, which is going to mean, what they're suggesting is that if you want to publish an article, you've got to ask the state first if you can publish it. So you end up with total state control of the press, and you end up with secret courts, and they're going to be doing everything. They're not just going to be continuing to murder people through the NHS and murder children. They're going to come for the rest of us. In the early days, a lot of people said, Brian, some of the things you said are a little bit over the top, because I've stood on stage and said these people want to kill us. And that's what I'm happy to say live tonight. If there's anybody who doesn't really understand what's coming, go and have a look on YouTube. There's some little film clips about the Kachin forest, where 2,000 Polish officers were murdered. Initially, the Nazis were accused, but it was actually the Soviets who did it. But there's a couple of little film clips showing what went on. And if you want to know what's coming, if we don't put a stop to it, it's that. Because these people are unbelievably evil.
Very.
Sorry to be passionate.
That's okay. Well, Brian, we understand, and you are passionate about these subjects, and when people are having to pop all the time, I mean, you're actually hitting a nerve with these people because of what you're doing and the information we come across, and OYM, we're no different. But what we'll do is we'll do a quick fire with these questions, Brian, which will which will give you the time to talk about the bits you want to talk about. Steve?
Okay, yeah, there's a lot of kind of chat going back and forwards, as I mentioned previously, on our chat box here on OYM. I'll just read it out, Brian. I'll read out two of the comments. I don't really think, my own personal opinion is, I think this is another one of those things that is not really relevant to any of the work that you're doing or anything that you might be exposing or uncovering. But one of our listeners is wondering, does Brian get a pension from the Crown? And he also wonders who provides funds to help set up the UK column. I think you've already answered that question. And they also wonder, who is Sheila Butler?
Right, well, do I get a pension? Yes. Am I happy to spend that pension? Absolutely yes, because that pension is one of the things that has allowed me to do what I'm doing. So I look at it from the point of view that the Crown is busy paying me at the moment in order to expose what the Crown really is. One of the weaknesses that I've seen across what we'll call the truth movement is you see a lot of people who are desperately short of money, and they'll tell us or they'll tell other people that they're short of money, and then if you suggest ways where they can start to bring money in to help what they're doing, or you see signs of people who are being successful, then very often they'll turn around and attack you. So, yeah, I'm a retired naval officer. I have a small pension, and that pension allows me to do things, and I'm very happy to have it. Sheila Butler. Sheila is a lady in her mid-80s. She has been a fantastic lady. She's been desperately worried about what's been happening to her country. She supported all sorts of groups who've tried to do something to help the country. She supported UKIP at one stage. She supported the Freedom Association. She supported the British Constitution Group. She's done a lot of things. She's an elderly lady. She's, if you meet her, a lovely lady. She's getting on. She's getting frail. Has she given us some help? Yes, she has. The fact that Mel V has put this elderly lady in the limelight and attacking her as though she's some, I'm not sure what the word is, some beast, is obscene. And this is, one of my gripes. Sheila Butler is an elderly lady who's given us help. She's given lots of other people help. She's been unbelievably kind to a lot of people. And to now see her name sort of dragged into the mire is appalling. Do I see her on a regular basis? I sometimes take her out for trips in the car because otherwise she wouldn't get out of her house.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I thought you were going to expand on that. No, that's fine. One more here. There's four more actually, Brian. But one here from JJ Walls from the TNS chat. JJ says, Brian Gerrish and Ian Crane are well known and respected by all of us. David Icke and Jim Corr are known by the masses, but the masses think they are a penny short. That's obviously Jim Corr and David Icke. The masses think they are a penny short of a full shilling. How does Brian believe he can reach the masses?
Well, first thing I'll say is that I don't think either Jim Corr or Icke are any penny short of a shilling. What I will say with David Icke is that David Icke in the beginning decided he was going to talk about subjects which he believed to be the truth, and he took it across a big spectrum. So he's gone everywhere from what the bankers really are to the family bloodlines, and he's taken it right the way across the spectrum to what he calls lizards, what other people might call demons. If you look at what Icke talks about in the key areas, because I don't agree with some of what he says, well, don't agree with it, I'm not looking at those areas. But if you say the key part, has he been right about the child abuse? Yes. Has he been right about the banking industry? Yes. Has he been right about the elite? Has he been right about the corruption? So all those things David Icke's been right about, but because he chose to go into some of these other subjects, that's tainted people's view of him, and also it's left him open to criticism. With the UK column, in the beginning I stuck to common purpose because I said if people do not understand what common purpose is and they can't see it, they won't be able to fight. That's still absolutely true. But alongside that, we've stayed focused on what is mainstream stuff. And we've done that because we want to try and grip hold of Middle England. And if you start to, if I'm with a small group of people, and I have done it, if they want to talk to me about what I call spiritual things, I'll talk about it. But do I do it on a stage with larger audiences? No, I don't, because at the moment we know we're making real progress by sticking with ordinary factual things about what's happening in the country, what's happening with children, what's happening with the economy, what's happening with the money supply, fraud, corruption, tangible things that people can grip. And I think this is where we have done well out of it, because people might think that we're a bit hard sometimes. Some people have said the first time they listened to some of the stuff, they thought it was extreme, but then they started to pay attention to what we're talking about. But I don't want to water down what we're talking about by drifting into other subjects where people then say, well, I don't believe that, so I don't believe the rest of what they say. An emotive topic, chemtrails. I look up in the sky, I see chemtrails. I personally believe chemtrails are real. I think they're a threat. We know quite a bit about them, but we don't want to introduce those sorts of topics when we're doing investigation or the news, because we've got other, I think, more important things to concentrate on at the moment.
Okay, I definitely think I agree with you on that one. How many more questions do you have there, Steve?
I have 4 more questions.
Oh my God. Okay,
Yeah.
very busy.
And I tell you, you can see it there as well as I can. It's the chat box here, or the chat facility here. It is hopping. There's smoke coming out of it. I mean, there's a lot of questions coming up, Brian.
Well, go on, keep going. I'll cut my answers down a bit.
Right, like there's one question here, and again, we had Vin from TNS has just stuck a comment in, and Vin has said that, you know, some of the questions that kind of reflect the people. He said something about you know, it kind of reflects the if I can find it there. No, it says something about the people who were asking them, and some of the questions here say more about those asking. But like questions coming up like, how old were you when you reached retirement, Brian? And don't you agree that bricklayers should be held back from retirement until age 70 and beyond? I'm not kind of sure where that question is going.
To be honest with you, we don't want to waste time on that. They're irrelevant questions as far as I'm concerned. Well, let's just move ahead, Brian, and talk about, because we're going to be running out of time. Okay, one more, Steve.
Oh, well, okay. I'll have to ask 2.
All right, go on.
I'll ask 2 very quickly, right? One, does Brian think people should be able to grow their own cannabis for their own use, or should we continue to support the failed war on drugs? That's question 1. And I'll just throw number 2 in. Can you ask Brian when he's going? Now, this is from someone called Rusty, and he says, "Hi, can you ask Brian when he will answer my text to arrange a meeting with me, you and Roger and John Hurst? I want Birkenhead sorted out. I've been out for 8 months now." That would probably mean more to you, Brian, than it does to us.
Okay, well, the answer to that one is simple. I know the text there. I'm waiting to speak to Roger, and then we'll speak to Rusty.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah, that's the answer to that one.
Okay.
And the cannabis?
Well, the cannabis one, I find this a very difficult area for a number of reasons. One, how do I do this? Alcohol is a drug, and we have problems with alcohol. Does that mean to say that I don't drink? No. There are many people that say we should have cannabis liberalised. I am really not sure about that, mainly because I haven't thought about it a great deal. But I'm intrigued that cannabis is a subject which keeps coming up, and to me that is not the most important issue at the moment. The most important issue is that we've got children disappearing, murdered and abused. So one of the things I get frustrated about with people who are enthusiastic cannabis supporters is they seem more interested in their cannabis and smoking than they do in getting to grips with the really difficult stuff going on at the moment. Now, I know that might be an unpopular answer with some. I'm being truthful. I haven't made my mind up about the thing, you know, should we allow cannabis to be sort of used freely. But in my day-to-day existence at the moment, cannabis rates about 500th. I'm more interested in the fact that we've got people murdering babies and young children, and they're not being brought into courts. We're not dealing with it. I'm more worried with the fact that we've got a government that's clearly trying to suppress free media. I'm worried about the fact that we've got people dying in police custody and that policemen are then simply being gently pensioned off. So I can't get too excited about cannabis. And I've got to say that in some of the people I've met, great people, but they seem more concerned about where the next joint's coming from rather than dealing with some pretty serious serious stuff.
Well, let's go down that road now, Brian, because we haven't really touched base on it. The whole Jimmy Savile debacle and what went on, and the ramifications of all the exposure that has gone on with Jimmy Savile. And even I was watching a thing about the Ted Heath. He was a rampant paedophile, and to the level, allegedly a murderer as well, because he used to get these boys from Hope de la Graine. They used to go on his boat, and then these boys disappeared, and they were never seen again. Now, there's a few other people have come out of the woodwork who are now passed away, but have also been labelled and mentioned. And I think this week there's been a couple of people being arrested because there's just 3 segments of this, and the 3rd segment was others. And there was a couple of other people arrested or wanted to be investigated. What's your take on all this? The one thing I want to obviously say as well with this, Brian, is that we have heard nothing over here in Ireland. Now, is that, apart from obviously all the issues with the church and the child abuse in the church, but we haven't heard anything about entertainers or politicians or anything like that. Well, I personally haven't come across it. I'm not saying there isn't, but I haven't seen anything like that. And I'm just wondering, apart from the obvious cases we've come across in the UK with politicians and the people in the entertainment world, have you heard anything over here in Ireland regarding any of that going on?
Sorry, have we heard anything about what's been going on with children in the church in Ireland?
Well, not so much the church, but there's a lot of, I won't say a lot, but politicians and entertainers have been mentioned and questioned over in the UK, but over in Ireland it seems to be very quiet. Have you, without going into any detail, have you had any reports saying, so-and-so has been, there's a question mark over this person over here in Ireland? Have you heard anything?
No, we haven't. But I will tell you what I believe is going on at the moment is a combination of a massive cover-up with a massive propaganda exercise to take people's eye off the ball of what this Jimmy Savile thing really means. I don't think it's any coincidence that you've got Operation U-Tree, where a U-tree is traditionally found in graveyards, and that, I think, sums it up. The objective is to bury the whole of the case. None of the key questions are being asked at the moment. If you just take Jimmy Savile and how did he get access to Broadmoor? Who gave him access? Who gave him access to the hospitals? Very simple questions that are fundamental. Of how was this man allowed to get in these places? Nobody wants to go near these questions. And, to say that he was regularly meeting up with Thatcher, that he was regularly meeting up with the royal family, nobody questioned at the moment. I think it's just a massive cover-up. And, of course, the other thing they've consistently tried to do is put across as propaganda that, this was the climate back then. It was very liberal, so therefore men would have been getting involved with teenage girls. This is the way the pop stars or the TV celebrities were. The implication is it's all different now. Well, it isn't. Actually, what's going on now is worse because the scale of the things got bigger. So for me, we've got, in one way, we've got an absence of reporting anything tangible on Jimmy Savile. But what does come out is all distraction, elderly men picked up. Whereas we know, because so many people are saying it, including police officers, that the Jimmy Savile paedophile rings go into Westminster. They go in amongst politicians. And I'm often saying we have police who are providing information, and that's absolutely correct. Policemen who've been involved with child protection teams, who've talked about doing investigations into child trafficking, child paedophile, snuff movies, the lot, particularly in the metropolitan area, where they said it was absolutely clear not only the scale of what was going on, but that senior people were involved, politicians and judges, for example. And what happened after they'd done their initial investigations, the senior officers closed the case down. That's gone on time after time, and we've now got police who are telling us there's virtually a war going on between effectively good policemen and people who know that this government, and it was the same with Brown and Blair, are actually protecting the paedophile rings. Why are they protecting them? Because the blackmail through involvement with paedophile is how the government is controlling the structure. So, as far as I'm concerned, and from all the information and evidence we're being given, there is just the most phenomenal cover-up. Because once a few names come out of the real politicians and people who are involved, the whole house of cards comes down. I mean, if we take Jersey, Haute-de-la-Graine, the same thing. We've even got police officers there saying the moment they started to get the investigation underway, they're discredited, they're pulled off the case. It's gone on time and time again, operation or not conducted properly. Yeah, and I'll give you some examples. So this is from my personal experience with two other people talking to Devon and Cornwall police, saying that a 3-month-old baby was going to be taken by Welsh social services, and we warned that baby was going to be abused. A matter of weeks later, we knew the baby was abused because it had been seen, the condition of the baby, covered in eczema, covered in nappy rash, lifeless, like a lifeless floppy doll. And when 3 of us went into Charles Cross Police Station in Plymouth to report, and at the time we even had photographs, that 3-month-old baby has been abused, no information taken from us, no tell us what you know because we're here to protect children. We ended up with a police sergeant shouting at us, telling us to get out of his interview room. Now, why would the police want to tell you to get out their interview room when you are providing information of child abuse? For me, there's only one sensible explanation. They know what's going on, and they know that the police are themselves involved in the paedophile and the abuse rings. Yeah.
It's yeah. I mean, that's the trouble. What can you do, and what do you do if they kick you out of the interrogation room or the room, or you're trying to give them evidence and they just ignore you or blank you, or they just don't accept it?
Well, we have to do what we're all doing at the moment, which is that we're shouting from the rooftops what's going on, and we've got to keep blasting it out over programs like yours and UK Column Live, internet, everywhere we get it, until we get the majority of the people to wake up to what is really going on. I'll put a challenge out, if I may, live with you guys tonight. Right? My research says that 30,000 children, this is in England, Scotland and Wales, are disappearing every year. Now, some people have said to me, where'd you get this from? And I say, well, this is part of the key question, because you have to talk and look at what a number of agencies are talking about before you can work this figure out. But in simple terms, the figure for missing people in Scotland, England and Wales is 300,000 a year, of which the authorities say roughly 2/3 come back, they're found. That leaves us with 100,000 people who are never found, of which roughly 1/3 are children. Right?
Yep.
Now, my challenge live tonight is, would anybody here like to provide the detailed figure of how many children actually go missing a year? That is, to prove me wrong by providing the factual evidence of how many go missing. My point is, we know it's thousands of children, and I'm saying it's 30,000, but you never hear it on the news. We get a little girl tragically goes missing in Wales, all of a sudden it's all over the media. Maddie McCann goes missing all over the media. But if you go to the Missing Kids website, which is supposed to be tied in with CEOPS and the police side, you can see that in January, according to them, there's already about 8, 9, 10 youngsters gone missing. Well, why aren't they all over the news? So, for me, the clue to what's going on here is the fact that we have this vast number of children simply disappearing, and the state does not want to talk about the statistics. Why? Because if you start talking about the statistics, it's obvious that what's going on is on a huge scale. The next thing you discover is that if you go and look at the charities that say they are there to protect children, you discover something interesting. They're making vast amounts of money out of it. And we flagged up one a few days ago, which is called Action for Children. You're talking about turnovers of 195 million.
That's one thing. Yeah, you said that about the money they get for actually taking children off families.
Yeah. Well, foster a child and you're going to get about £460 a week. So if you're fostering 3 children a week, you're in big money. And everybody earns who touches the child.
Incredible.
So what I am convinced we're looking at is massive state-sponsored stealing and trafficking of children. And we've got a lot of people now saying that this is absolutely right, including people in the police.
And obviously, over in Ireland as well, I know you've come across some cases in Ireland where a similar thing is happening, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a very good guy in Ireland called Kevin Ball, free-thinking voice, tied into Orion Radio in the States. And Kevin has been assisting some of these cases in Ireland, but he's also got experience of dealing with British social services, and he can give examples of children taken, put on an aeroplane, shipped back to England, never seen again.
And these are Irish children, are they?
In a particular case that's in my mind, but I don't want to give more information on that particular case. They're actually English. This is a case of people who've run to Ireland to try and protect their children, but the children were ultimately taken. And there have been numerous cases of this in Ireland, including babies being taken away.
That's yeah. I mean, and of course, all these missing kids, and are you going to put them 30,000 kids that are missing? Is that a mixture of kids being killed and abused, and then got rid of snuff movies and everything else thrown in? All that is in the mix.
If my figure is 30,000 a year is correct, then obviously they're not just being taken by a few old dirty men in raincoats. The number says that something on a vast scale is taking place.
Well, if what Bill Maloney was talking about, Hope de la Gren, and the whole Ted Heath thing, I mean, if that was happening on a regular basis, I mean, them poor kids, being taken out on the boat and then never seen again, and, I mean, that's just phenomenal. And I don't, it's just...
There's the challenge. If people are interested in the subject, just do some research on how many children actually go missing. And if you come back, somebody comes back and says, well, Brian, you're not correct, it's 20,000 a year, not 30, I'll accept the figure. But my challenge to people is the evidence as to what's going on is, one, that the state does not account for missing children. The BBC would have us believe the moment a child goes missing, there's a big manhunt all over the country. Absolutely not. And the next thing is, the moment you know that it's thousands of children disappearing, where are they going?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Where are they going?
Yeah.
Now,
well,
have you heard that?
Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, have you heard anything more, any updates regarding the whole U3 investigation? I mean, obviously, we feel, and what we've seen is that there is a mixture of red herrings along with the lower level people being lifted to protect the higher level.
Well, that's exactly what they do. You see, the impression the state likes to give, firstly, is that paedophiles are usually ordinary working-class people.
Yeah.
They try and make it out as if it's moved up a bit from dirty old men in raincoats, but they give the image that, oh, well, it was a school teacher here and it was this social worker there, and it's that sort of person.
Yeah.
What you never hear is them saying, well, actually, this is a game that gets played across the spectrum of society. And as one of the policemen said to me, Brian, he said, what you've got to remember is that you've got a room where men are abusing children. I'm going to restate that. Men and women are abusing children. And he said one of them will be a judge, and one of them might be the refuse collector. And while they're doing their stuff, they are mates. And they will protect each other, because if one goes down, the other goes down.
Yeah.
But the key point is it's across the spectrum. If you then get into the area of buying children, and one of the figures that we were given recently is that in Northern Ireland at the moment, you want to buy a child to do what you want and dispose them as you want, you're talking £38,000. This is rich person's game.
And
this is not ordinary person's game, because you can't afford it.
And I'm sure you've probably seen the movie with Liam Neeson called, Taken, the movie. And I'm pretty sure from the information that I've been given that goes on big time.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. The more you dig into this subject, the trouble with the subject is it's a nasty subject. It's dark, it's depressing. If you don't watch it, it can get you. So anybody who wants to start researching it, I got some advice, and that is that you don't research this sort of stuff late into the night every night, because it won't do you any good.
No.
But if you start researching it, you find that something is going on here. Where did child trafficking start in Britain? You can go back to the 1640s, and you find that the Privy Council was giving approval for street children to be rounded up and shipped out to the colonies. Mm. You can then discover that people in the colonies were complaining, so we're talking the American colonies, people in the colonies were complaining that these children were arriving with no clothes, no proper possessions, in a poor state of health.
Yeah.
But the Privy Council had simply said, let's ship these children out to colonies in the States. And of course they later did it to colonies in Australia. So the British government, the heart of the British government, has got a track record of trafficking children overseas.
And the one thing you mentioned on your show, I believe this morning, Brian, was the fact that they're trying to legalise paedophilia.
There is no question this is coming. Absolutely no question. And one of the areas that I know is another delicate one is that you can see that the gay lobby is being used to drive this wedge through. Yeah,
definitely,
Peter Tatchell. I've had people sending me emails defending Peter Tatchell, but Peter Tatchell has been speaking out, saying that, well, he doesn't necessarily think these relationships are damaging.
Yeah.
We've got Liberty, Shami Chakrabarti, standing up. She's involved with what's going to happen with freedom of the press. She's been working with Leveson. But the organisation Liberty, formerly National Council for Civil Liberties, was actively campaigning with two paedophile organisations.
That's incredible.
British politicians suggesting that it should be okay to take pornographic pictures of children, and the emphasis should be on the children, to prove they've been harmed by the process.
And has nobody gone up to these politicians and, you know, you can't call them paedophiles, but, I mean, I'm sure there's some choice words that you could use.
Some of them have been chastised in the press, but the key point is they're still in post.
Yeah.
Jack Straw helped pass a law by which children were not allowed to speak out if they were being abused in a care system. Why would any man want to make it difficult for children to actually say if they were being abused?
That's incredible. I mean, why would any man do that unless there's some other sinister means or something going on?
I think a detached observer would say, well, the only reason you'd want to do this is if you wanted to make it easier to abuse children who were in the so-called care system.
Definitely, or else support or hide people who are doing it, even if you're not related to it or involved with it directly, because maybe they have something on you to keep you quiet.
Yeah, but everywhere you go, you are seeing chipping away. The first bit is the age of consent. Right? Let's say the age of consent's 18. Well, of course, people are 16 are, going to go and have a bit of nookie. Oh, well, then we need to drop it to 16. Well, then we got people 14. Well, now we need to drop it to 14. Now we got people who are 12. Well, that's convenient because we're nearly at Vatican City.
Yeah, exactly. And they've lowered down the age there on Vatican City.
Yep. And you watch the sex education in schools. This is not about basic bees and the birds. You've got graphic, explicit sex education, which is deliberately sexualizing young children.
And of course, if you add everything else into the mix regarding, the chemicals in the food and everything else, you got young girls actually, developing quicker.
Earlier.
Exactly, reaching puberty earlier. I mean, it's just unbelievable what's going on there.
Yeah.
But we have about 10 minutes, Brian.
Sorry, if I may, the key bit for people to understand is the reason they want to make paedophilia normal is because they know that if you end up with adults having sex with children willy-nilly, what you've actually achieved is a total breakdown in the normal structure of a society. And when you've got people involved in that, and then, of course, the fringe element are on to a new subject, they're having sex with dead bodies or animals.
Yeah.
Possible? Well, Jimmy Savile was at it. So now you've got complete anarchy. Anything goes. And what you've actually done is, by a liberal chipping away, you've moved society into what is a satanic society. Do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what a lot of people just can't realise, there's a document which you can get on the internet which is called The Soviet Art of Brainwashing. Now, there's some text which goes with it because it's an introduction. This was released to the public domain by an American man who'd been a member of the American Communist Party. And he claimed that this document was part of the material they were given, which was about how Western societies were to be broken down. And if you read that document, some of it is pretty harrowing at the beginning because it talks about how you can torture and smash another human being into obeying you. But it then goes on to say, but we've got much better ways. We want to sexualize a whole society so these people are just, at each other the whole time.
Yeah. We're
going to attack the leaders. We're going to discredit institutions. We're going to promote homosexuality. And this is the reality, that we have got malevolent minds capable of devising plans that the average person can't get their heads around because they're such nice people. But if you want to destroy a society, what do you want to destroy? The children.
But
then you've got the society, haven't you?
Well, I've always said we are living in Sodom and Gomorrah to a certain extent. And it's getting worse.
Yeah. now we're at the point where if we're going to do something, we have to make a stand. And what some people just can't get their heads around is that when you make a stand, you've actually got to start saying no. It's not enough to nibble at the edges. No. No more. You know, people here at the moment in England are waking up to the fact that thousands of people are being murdered through the NHS.
Yeah, we did.
Right?
We heard that report, all right, yeah.
Yes, well, Staff's Hospital is one where they're saying up to 1,200 people died in conditions of filth and, what's the word, dehydration,
Of course,
wrong drugs.
The hospital food is a big... We've seen a picture of food being served. I don't know if it was in the UK, but over here. And the food would probably kill you. If you read it, it'd probably kill you yourself. And you're in a hospital, you know? Yeah.
So these things are now happening. We flagged up, there's been a report on the police recently. Now, we know there's a lot of good policemen and women out there, but there's also a huge amount of fraud and corruption. We're seeing people dying when they come into contact with the police, dying in custody, dying after being tasered, dying after being shot in the head.
Yeah, it's
so, you know, all of these things fit together, and we're now at the point where we can say no more.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be more and more questions will come into mind. They always do. But we've reached that time in the evening, Brian. So what I'd say is, thanks a lot for coming on, and we really appreciate you coming on and giving us a heads up on what's going down, especially with the Melv. I recommend you have a look at that link anyway, just as a matter of course, just to have a look at it. But I'll pass you over to Steve, and we'll get all your contact details and everything else.
Okay, have I time to ask the last couple of questions?
Very quickly.
I can ask them very quickly. Maybe Brian could answer them. Maybe even a sentence per answer. I don't know. Maybe.
Okay.
It's just if I don't ask them, I'll be shot. I'll go through them quickly, Brian. Lord Vapor wonders: is it true that the elites particularly love the abuse of disabled and mentally impaired children?
That is absolutely correct. It's not just the elite. Pedophiles like the abuse of those children because they are cold, callous. They're psychopathic, basically. They regard weakness as something laughable. So they love children that have a weakness, mentally, physically disabled, and also those children are generally considered to be unreliable witnesses, so they regard them as easy meat. But the police that we've talked to who've worked in these teams say this is absolutely true. Children who are mentally and physically disabled are prime candidates for abuse.
That's great. Following on from that, another quick one from Shane. Shane wants to know, where does Brian think the 30,000 kids go? Are they sold or sacrificed, or what do you think happens to them?
I think everything happens to them. They are put through a relatively benign process of fostering overseas, which makes people money. They're trafficked, they're put into prostitution, they go into paedophile rings, and ultimately they're being killed, either for films and or body parts.
Okay, and the last question I have here, Brian, is one from Alan Carna. This is a little off topic, but Alan wonders, what does Brian think of the idea of forcing the banks to pay a transaction tax, 1% on every speculation transaction, as well as the Bradbury pound?
Well, I've got to say that the tax, I can't remember, the Tobin tax, I think it is, basically, I don't believe that can work unless you've dealt with the banking system itself. You have to get rid of this corrupt, fraudulent system. You have to have the nation issuing its own currency debt-free. When you've done that, it would be reasonable, I think, to have a tax per transaction. But if we don't deal with the sheer scale of the corruption of the international bankers and money created from nothing for debt, nothing else is going to work. It's only fiddling around the edges.
Definitely.
Okay, and that's, well, I think you've summed up there, Brian. Lastly, the very last thing I need to ask you is, can you give the listeners your website, and if you have a YouTube channel as well, or where they can find more information on you and your work?
Okay, well, UK Column is where you need to go, really, which is www.ukcolumn, as in Nelson's column, ukcolumn.org.org. The other website that we run is www.cpexposed, CP being for common purpose, cpexposed.com. But if you go to the UK Column site, you'll find all the rest of that. And can I just say, as usual, we've covered some pretty heavy subjects. I am amazed at the speed at which people are waking up. I think this year, 2013, we're going to see amazing things, some of them very dark and horrible, but we're also going to see people starting to actually fight in the right way. I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about people withdrawing consent, people exposing the bad guys, and people, saying, no, we're not having this.
Yeah. I think you're right there, Brian. I think there's a massive awakening going on now, which is good to see. But all right, Brian, listen, thanks for coming on. Much appreciated. Just stay with us there for a minute. We're just going to go to a musical break. We'll be back to you after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMIreland.com, CNSradio.ning.com, and ICRadioNetwork.com.
And we're back. A little bit of Lizards in the Bathtub there. Alan Carna, ETUK. A brilliant song. I was first introduced to that song, I think, about a year ago. Would it be a year ago? And absolutely love it. One of my favourites. And now we have it down on CD. So a big thank you to Alan for that.
We can play it all the time.
We can play it whenever we want.
Now, I know there was a lot of questions coming in for Brian, and we couldn't obviously ask them all. Brian's area of expertise, as you all know, it's about the missing children and exposing what's going on there. Regardless of whether he gets a pension or he doesn't get a pension, that's irrelevant, and I wouldn't really go down that route anyway, because it's nothing got to do with what we want to talk to Brian about. So, just for our listeners or the chaps on the chat facility there, if we get a guest on and he's on to talk about a particular subject, we won't be sidetracking and going off somewhere else. We will stick to the subject matter at hand, because what's the point in doing that? If he comes on to talk about one area and then we go off and start talking about another area, it just doesn't make sense. But so that was brilliant, great information from Brian. I wanted Brian to have his say as well about that interview. I posted up the YouTube link on the chat facility there, so you can go along, have a listen to it, and make up your own mind. We will sit on the fence, obviously. One or two comments that were made that we weren't happy about the donations. Well, guys, at the end of the day, as we said earlier with Brian, what we do here does cost money, and we try and keep it as free or as cheap as we can, but it still costs money, and it costs us money as well. So, we are doing our best in what we can, and we do appreciate all the support we get and donations we get in. Everything's pumped back into OYM to make it better, like the bumper sticker campaign. It's just, that's what we want to do, what we want to do, and myself and Steve have always said it, and we'll keep on saying it. We are two guys who just talk to each other about what's going on in the world, and we just happen to have a microphone in front of us, and we just want to expose what's going on, and we get the odd guest on who'll talk about their area of expertise, and we let you decide whether it resonates with you and whether you agree with them or not. But that's the way it really works, isn't it, Steve?
Yeah, as I just said to Alan there, Jordan, we just kind of signed off with Brian. We had a few pleasantries then. We thanked him for coming on, and then we just spoke briefly here, and I was just saying to Alan about some of the comments that were coming up. Everyone's entitled to ask a question, but it's not that we're not afraid to ask questions. At the end of the day, we're just two people there. Alan generally does a lot of research. He has a lot of questions to ask. I'm generally busy at work during the week, so I only kind of get my education or kind of get tuned in when Alan emails me during the week. So a lot of the questions that I do have, and I get them from this chat and also from the TNS chat as well, I copy them and paste them into a little Word document, and then I read them out as they come up. But when you kind of see some questions coming up and all at once, it's kind of deviating or different, whatever the word is, it's kind of going off the subject matter, and it's kind of going into another area, about something that we didn't get the man on to talk about. And I mean, before Brian comes on, we basically he knows why he's coming on. He's kind of told, this is why we want to have you on. That's the subject matter we want to cover. And I think if we're going to start differentiating and going over and talking about a pension or anything else, I think then that would kind of, it would take from the interview, and it would also, probably leave him with a different taste in his mouth at the end of the interview. Like, these lads got me on to talk about this, and they went and done a complete 360 and spoke about something else. So I mean, it's no disrespect to any of the listeners. We do ask the questions, and I think anyone who's been a regular listener to the show knows that we do ask the questions. I mean, we also advocate that there is a phone line there, and anyone is welcome at any time to ring up and ask questions.
Yeah, exactly, phone in. Now, the chat facility is there, obviously, for us to interact with the listeners and for the listeners to ask questions to the guest. And I wasn't too impressed with what went on the chat facility tonight. And the last thing I want to do is I don't want to nail that chat facility down where you have to have a registered account and then I have to block IP addresses so you won't get access. I don't really want to do that. We don't really want to do that. But, we're all adults here, guys. So, let's, cut out the kind of the bitchiness on the old chat facility there and just get down to asking questions and keep it clean. That's the way we want to run it, okay? And the last thing we want to do is have to disable it and not have that facility. So anyway, we got 3 minutes left. Next week we have a lady on, Heather Martin. Now, she was on the show before, but we only gave her a very, very short interview, and she wants to talk about the Kevin Arnott thing again. We're going to go into more detail. She might have a couple of native Indians on, which we had last time, Royce, and there's a couple of questions that we want to ask her about the whole situation. So tune in for that for next week. TNS Radio, any news on that? I think Vin is going to have played a Billy Maguire thing, is he?
I'm not 100% sure, but from what we've seen going in the chat, I think Vin may have a couple of callers. That there may be a few people ringing in tonight. So I mean, if what has kind of transpired in our chat is anything to go by, stay tuned to TNS at 9 o'clock. I'm sure it's going to be interesting. But I did send Vin a message there earlier just to see if he had anybody on with him later on, and he hasn't actually got back to me. I'm guessing he's probably busy.
I think he's going to play the Billy Maguire recording of the Dave Harvey interview, and he possibly might have Anonymous on phoning in to the show and talking, as far as I know. So, stay tuned. The TNS Radio is going to be on next. But from ourselves, as I say, don't forget the United We Strike Radio Marathon. That's playing 24/7 on the player. And some great guests and horroring stories about kids and abductions and trouble with the police and everything. So tune in. Or you can go off to United We Strike, click on the player, and you'll hear the actual the audio as soon as our show finishes, because we're on the player at the moment. But we'll be activating the podcast shortly in the next few minutes. So, from myself, Alan James, take care, take it easy. If there's any news, let us know. Until next week, bye-bye.
Okay, thanks very much. And the same for me. It's been an education as always. Yeah, so stay tuned at TNS. And we'll catch you again in 7 days. From myself, Stephen George, very good evening. Take care, bye-bye.
Open your mind.